In video 1, we built a Jeep from Tamiya. In video 2, we built the figures from the US Scout set from Tamiya. Now let's put it all together and build our very first diorama. In terms of materials, etc., obviously we've built our kits, our figures. I'm suggesting that you start off with a good base, and a base that is sized around the diorama you're going to depict, not the other way around. Not that you basically just buy a base and try and squabble together something. That can lead to other problems. These pre-made or, well, wooden bases that you can buy basically anywhere are really cheap. They're really sturdy, provide a really good foundation to build your diorama on, and also they are really, really cheap. I think this one's £4 UK pounds at some point. This one probably, $5, that sort of price range. If you know a carpenter, they can probably make you one of these to the exact size that you require. Okay, because this is your very first diorama, your first vignette, I thought what would be the easiest way to go about this, and this is what I've come up with. I'm suggesting that you buy a pre-cut diorama mat, and I'll put up some examples here. Yes, more expensive. Also, I can't say that it's the absolutely best way to do this, but in terms of ease for a beginner to quickly build a diorama, this is what I suggest you go. There's a lot of variations on these grass mats as well. You can get ones with rocks, with different features, etc. Choose the one that you like the look of and go with that. And also you can get alternative types of scenery like roads, etc. that are pre-made. And the idea here is that you just don't get bogged down in terrain making at this stage. Later on, we can always discover that. Okay, I've got the right sized base for my diorama. I've got my mat. All I need to do is cut this out to the exact shape and size as the base. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, the grass mat is attached. I left it to dry so it's really well bedded in there. Use PVA glue. I think you could use double-sided tape if you wish. I've got a slight problem here. I've got this grey colour here. That's because I used the extreme edge of the mat, and I'm going to have to airbrush in some colour there. You probably won't have to if you've got a brand new mat. I'm going to take this opportunity as well to point out now and again the big mistakes that you can make with dioramas, the common mistakes. And I'm going to tell you the first one. Number one is floaters. What is a floater? A floater is just taking the base, take the vehicle, and you will see that unusually it is actually floating on top of the grass. The same could be said for this dragon's tooth, yeah? And you do see this sometimes. People forget that, vehicles have weight. They've got the ability to bed and compact in grass. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is actually going to cut out a portion of this mat here so that this dragon's tooth is properly going to be bedded in as if the grass, etc. has grown up around it as it would do in nature. Tip number 2 is called symmetry. Also falls into line with composition. Symmetry. You actually need to avoid it. For some reason, placing stuff like so just doesn't look as good as, for instance, taking the items and putting them at angles that are different to the base. For some reason, it just looks so much better, and rather than some sort of weird square arrangement. So that is my second tip. My second tip is symmetry, avoid it. My third tip is crowding, avoid crowding. If you push too much onto a base, and it's going to fall in with another tip I've got, it just doesn't look right. It looks as if you've actually pushed too much into a scene. Avoid crowding on your dioramas and space out the figures, the vehicles, and also the accessories so that they will naturally sort of appear, not cramped in like in that example. Another tip is confusion. Avoid confusion on your dioramas, and in particular with the figures. So I've got one figure looking out here, this guy's looking that way, this guy's looking down at something. What are they all doing? They all appear to be confused and doing different things. It's all going to go into our composition part and our story part. But when you've got confusion, which also can be too many different things happening, the diorama itself is confusing. You're not clear in what you're trying to convey. Okay, so by scraping away at the grass mat, you can create areas that alleviate that problem of floating and create vehicle tracks. Also, I think we'll create a little area here for the figure placement as well. Now, another tip for you as well, okay, this goes right on the back of crowding. You can also have deserted or deserting, yeah, where basically, you know what it's going to be. You've got something like this. Just one solitary figure, or maybe two, and the base is just too big for them. So all about sort of scaling, sizing, and making the diorama fulfill its objectives. Okay, so I've scraped away and created a further area for placement of the figures, again to alleviate that floating problem. Now I've got another situation here. This is obviously the wrong colour, and as I mentioned, the border. You've got a few solutions here. You could use pigments here to create earth effect, or you could airbrush in dirt, and that is exactly what we're going to do. Okay, a quick word on accessories or the additions to your diorama. We've got a very specific one here, a dragon's tooth, yeah? Let's have a look at how that looks without that, yeah? Let's put down the atypical oil drums, yeah, which everybody seems to use as space fillers in a spare tyre. Why does that look wrong in this situation? Well, first of all, it's a reconnaissance situation. This Jeep is driving up to a point where this stuff just wouldn't be there, yeah? It just would not be situated there, although, you know, people do it and can get away with it. Why the dragon's tooth? Well, that places it exactly in the time frame that we have for the figures. Late 1944, that sort of period. Ardennes campaign, prior to the Ardennes actually, because they're still, you know, wearing the sort of summer type uniforms. So Hurtgen Forest at the front line doing the reconnaissance mission. They always come up to this point to do a scan of the enemy front line, and that is, you know, part and parcel of sort of telling that story. What else can you use? Signposts as well really help. They immediately, where's that set? Okay, if you've got a signpost saying Cannes on it or something, or Berlin, you know where it is exactly. But think a little bit about your accessories, what is credible. And that will also fill in as well to the Jeep itself. It's not absolutely loaded with equipment. I think it could do with something though, but these guys go out daily, they go out on a little patrol, yeah? They don't need to bring lots and lots of stuff with them. The old sweat though, he carries, because he's been in situations where, you know, he's been stuck behind the lines before, he knows to bring a lot of stuff, he knows what to do. But in terms of the Jeep itself, they don't carry much at all. They don't need to. They don't need lots of stuff. So absolutely loading it full of accessories can look cool, but not always the case. What would they bring? Well, I'll tell you what, as you know, all soldiers know what they like to have: food. So maybe we'll look for some rations or something to add to this little scenario. Okay, we'll talk briefly about figure interaction. These two, the radio operator and the tech sergeant there, yeah? What are they doing? Well, here's the answer, okay? It's actually in the instructions. These guys are looking at a map. That's exactly what they're doing, and he's radioing in some information about what he's seen at a coordinate. This guy's telling him, you know, he's the vet. He knows basically what he needs to convey to him. So there is actually supplied a little map here. Let's cut that out and see how it looks placed on the diorama base. Okay, so remember, maps have got fold lines in them. They're folded, they don't come totally flat. It's pretty easy, just put some folds into it. Let's see how that looks when it's placed down. A bit garish for some reason, it really sticks out. It's way too white. You have to tone that down. Also, just think about things like, in some cases, the wind would blow away a map. How would they hold down the map when they're looking at it? Maybe place a few grenades on the corners? Think about these things more and more, and you will have a much more interesting and dynamic scene. Okay, time for some airbrushing and painting. Okay, I've got out one of my older dioramas for my number one tip. This is the, if you take away anything for dioramas, vignettes, number one has to be story. Tell a story, and in some cases, keep it as simple as possible. In this one, this is a pretty simple story. when I see people that always have the same thing, they've got a tank, they've got two figures and a house, I think really that is so damn boring. What are you trying to convey? Okay, you've got nice base work, your modeling skills might be great, but really they are boring. When you've got a story to tell, it is just so much more interesting. This one is pretty self-evident, yeah? A combat scene where a BRDM has run into a mine, has got damage, they're trying to extricate themselves out, and it's got a few little nuances in here. First of all, to fill the scene, they've ran into a playground, and the crux of the matter is right here. There's a poster here, Idi Smotri, come and see the classic masterpiece film about the Second World War set in Belarus. But besides that, it's a black joke because underneath come and see is a 155mm shell rigged up to a detonation wire. These guys are going to get blown to smithereens. Anyways, what is our story? Our story is real simple. It's based on the video game Hell Let Loose, and these guys are a reconnaissance patrol on the Hurtgen Forest. They are going up to check the front lines, and it is as simple as that. It's pretty easy to see what's going on. The radio guy is radioing in information. The more senior of the team, the technical sergeant, knows how to read a map and is keeping the radio operator in check. And of course, the officer, who obviously can't read maps because he's an officer, is just keeping an eye on things. As simple as that. A nice little scene. And why does it have to be any more than that? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got something to take away, and see you soon.